We are finally doing a video for you guys on how to wet mold a veg tan leather. So you can see here we've got an example of a finished product where we've actually molded the leather onto the back of the last to get this really nice shape. So if you guys want to come on over, I will show you how to do it. Right, so what I've got here is a piece of veg tanned leather. It's actually from the belly of the animal. And it's reasonably thick. I'd say it's about like 2 mil, something like that. So you can see on our example here that we don't have these 3 little tabs. I've left them on there because I'm actually going to use little tacks to hammer that into the last. And one of the final things we're going to do is actually cut them off at the end. So before we can start molding this into shape, we need to wet it. So let's go to the kitchen. Okay, so now that I've soaked my piece of leather in warm water, it's starting to become quite malleable, which is what we want. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to place it onto the back of the last, and I'm going to secure it on using these little tabs that we've got. So if I just take my awl, I'm going to sort of poke a little hole there like that, and I'm going to take a little flat shoemaker's tack, stick that in there, and just hammer it down. And then I'm going to do the same on the other side. We'll do the same on the back there. It's pretty important to mention that you don't want to hammer these all the way flat because you'll never get them back out again. You just want them securing it to the last. Okay, so the wet molding part's going to start here underneath. Now, what we want to do is just slowly start pulling it in over the edge and hammering it down. So I'm going to start right here on these edges. And essentially the main part that we'll be molding is underneath this area here. So we want to be pulling it all in and over that curve. So I'm just going to start by pulling in little pleats kind of as far away from the edge as I can, and then tacking them down. So you'll start to create pleats around the back here. So first I'm working my way around getting really big pleats in, and I'm getting the tacks quite far away from the edge. Once I've done that, I'm going to add some more water and pull these even further away from the edge and get some tacks in there as well. So let's get around this side first. Okay, even though this is looking like quite a mess at the moment, we can see that it's really starting to mold nicely to the back of the heel there. At this point, we could actually remove some of this excess and then come back in with some more tacks. Okay, so I've just taken my knife and I've actually cut around this edge, making sure that I'm not too close to the bottom edge of the shoe because we still need that to be able to wrap around our insole. So what I'm going to do here is actually remove all of this excess from the bottom, and I'm going to start by taking some of those tacks back out. Wet molding is a process, so it's all about training the leather to go where you want it to go. So quite often you're tacking things in place and then removing them, and then tacking them back in place and then removing them. Right, so you can see I've removed all that excess now, and I'm left with this, which I now need to again tack down in place. So I'm going to start with the two edges here. We want to make sure that that's pulled really nice and tight on the sides. Okay, so now we're back to molding that back section again. All right, so I'm going to start maybe right at the back this time. So we can see I've got a really nice tight curve there. And then I'm going to do the same thing here. So you'll see it's starting to move where those pleats go. Now you can see we've got that little bump there. So see how I'm kind of just using the awl to really drag it over the edge. That's where the edge is here. So I've really pulled that in really nice and far. And to be honest with you, I was planning on putting a little tack there, but I don't even really need it because the leather has just become so malleable now that it's wet. But just for luck, we can stick one in there anyway. These, of course, will all come back out again later on. Okay. Let's try and do the same thing here. We'll put a tack in there and then we'll just drag that pleat down. Start to see how smooth that edge is becoming now. So I'm going to take this one out because it's not really doing what we want it to do. And I'm going to get a new one in there. There we go. We'll do the same sort of thing here. Pulling that right over, like that. So I'm really training that leather to go right over the edge there. Might want to get one in here as well. That edge is now almost completely smoothed. So we've just got this last bit here to do. Right, we have now really molded that leather to go around the curve of the heel. So the next step with this is to actually let it dry overnight so that it sets in this position on the last. And we would then remove all the tacks from the top, and we would cut with a knife like this to remove those little tabs. And then at the bottom, we would just take the knife as well and just sort of skive it down to take any last sort of lumps and bumps out of that area. But that's then ready to be glued onto your insole board.